Hi everyone, welcome again to another episode of The Global Kitchen by Chef Hari. I am going to make rice today. I love rice, you know, it's a staple where I'm from in India, and it's a staple all over the world. And there are thousands and thousands of kinds of rice dishes all over the world. You know, anywhere from steamed rice to sushi to, of course, sticky rice, biryani, pulao, polo, cello, the tadik and the cello, paella, jollof rice, jambalaya, dirty rice. I mean, the list goes on. So today what I'm going to make for you is something I'm terming, looks like it's getting a little hot here. It's going to be called umami rice. Okay? So, let me cancel that for just a second. There we go. So, we're going to start with some aromatics. Okay, onions, carrots, some poblano pepper. This could be celery very easily. There we go. Problem solved. Just a touch of salt. This is on a fairly high heat. Let's see. Cancel that. There we go. Awesome. So you build the layers of flavor, right? It's not unlike a soup. Onions, carrots, you could use celery. I'm using a poblano pepper because I found it in the refrigerator. A little bit of olive oil to start. Sweat these off. A touch of salt, not too much. You'll see why in a moment. Okay, stir it up just a little bit. And if you look at my contraption, I've got everything in place here. All the aromatics, all my seasonings, everything is in place. Of course it's for the demo, but it's also because I want to be organized, right? And that's important in the kitchen. If you're organized, you're going to enjoy the cooking so much more, because not only is the cooking going to go a lot smoother, the cleaning will go a lot smoother as well. Right? The part that's not so much fun, really. Okay, we're not trying to cook this all the way. We're just trying to extract the flavor, build the aromatic flavor in the pan. Now, the type of pan is important. Typically, rice dishes that are filled with aromatics like this one should be cooked in a shallow pan. If you notice, the paella pan is often very shallow. So it's for that reason that this is a shallow, basically it's a sauté pan. Okay, so just maybe 2 minutes. Now for the aromatics. This is umami rice. So I have some button mushrooms. You could use shiitakes. You could use some really fancy mushrooms here. Frankly, you don't want to use overly fancy mushrooms because, you know, you're going to cook this off a little bit. And you're not really going to be able to showcase the mushrooms per se. But what we're trying to do is build the layers of flavor that give the umami, the savory, if you will. The je ne sais quoi, if you will. Pardon my French. Alright, so onions, carrots, a pepper, poblano in my case, you could use bell pepper, salt, olive oil, mushrooms. Maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds. We're not trying to cook this all the way through. We're just trying to extract the flavor. I'm going to try to do this as much in real time as possible, just to show you that you can really make a delicious, deep flavored rice dish in maybe 15 minutes or so, if that. Okay, garlic. This is cooking by Hari, so ginger. Now for some vegetables. Okay, radish, because I found it, it's the season. Just a small red radish. Zucchini, because it's the season. And some yellow squash, because it's the season. Right, so seasonal umami. So, you know, rice making seems to be very intimidating for a lot of folks out there. And, you know, most of us who are not comfortable with rice making on a stovetop tend to resort to a rice cooker, if you will. And that's a great tool in the kitchen, a rice cooker, because it's a very controlled way of cooking rice. Now, to make a deep flavored dish like this one, it's kind of hard to do in a rice cooker, right? So you want the ability to be able to caramelize the aromatics as I'm doing here. Caramelize the vegetables, caramelize the garlic, caramelize the ginger, and extract some of this great flavor that's going to perfume the rice. Okay, so that's really important. I mean, if you look at this melange, if you will, of vegetables and aromatics, really, you have to ask yourself, how could the rice taste bad, right? I mean, this is delicious already. This is a great side dish. It's basically a succotash without the lima beans or the corn or what have you. So that's really the building blocks for a great infused rice dish, is some sort of a development of flavor in the pan first. Okay, I can smell this already. I can actually start smelling the ginger. Now the uniformity of the cuts is important. If you notice, the vegetables have been cut fairly uniformly, and that's important, so that there's uniform cooking, and also the mouthfeel of every bite of rice, if you will, is uniform and is uniformly enjoyable, to be honest. Okay? We're getting there. We're getting there. We're almost ready to add the rice in just a moment. You don't want to cook this all the way. You want to leave some of the texture in the vegetables. Now for the additional umami. We have mushrooms, we have ginger. Lo and behold, a little bit of Tamari soy, low sodium soy. Not a lot. Maybe a tablespoon. The recipe's following, as you know. I can obviously smell the soy as it hits the pan. Takes me to fried rice. This is, of course, not fried rice. This is umami-laden rice. We're really cooking here, as some famous chef used to say. Okay, so we've built the layers. This is basically it. Now let me talk about the rice very briefly. I'm using long-grain basmati rice. Okay, basmati, basmati, no matter how you pronounce it, it's the same rice. It's long-grain, it's fragrant, it's often grown in the foothills of the Himalayas. It's grown all over the world these days because, after all, it's a much smaller world than it once was. I have washed this rice. I'll give you the amounts in the recipe. About 3 or 4 times until the water is run clearly. Okay? And then I've soaked it in that water. It's a fairly clear rice. Let me show this to you. Okay, so it's clear, and you can actually see the rice, right? So that means the excessive external starch and perhaps the impurities that were on the rice have been sort of taken care of. Soaking the rice for about 15 minutes draws out even more of the excessive starch. Drain that excessive water, drain the soaking water. You may put it through a strainer, of course. I'm fairly confident I'm going to get most of this just by doing that. That's it, it's mostly there. And then you add the rice. I mean, if you could smell this, you would be like, wow, that was about 5 minutes of cooking, maybe 6 minutes of cooking, and it's incredible what this smells like already. And that has to do with the fact that we had a great prep already in place, mise en place, and so it wasn't long. It was like a stir fry, right? Everything went really quickly. Now, this is important. This is not random. This is not nervous kind of fidgeting with my food. It's important to coat the rice with the flavors of the dish, but also some of the olive oil, or whatever kind of oil you choose to use, so that the rice kernels, if you will, the rice grains, are somewhat coated, right? And that ensures that when the rice actually steams, along with the pre-soaking of the rice, that this will remain as a pilaf, meaning separated. Okay? Awesome. So, long grain rice typically takes, a 1 part rice to about 1.5 parts liquid. You could use stock from the vegetable trimmings that you could have made ahead of time. You can certainly use plain water, which is what I'm going to use. You can use another cooking medium. You could certainly use some cooking wines, if you will. You don't want to use all wine because it's going to be too much. Maybe temper the wine with some neutral liquid like water. So it's 1 part rice, and you see, and this is intentional again. There's a little toasting that's happening, and it's all by design. It's going to create a great deep flavor that you would think took a very long time to develop. Okay, now the deglazing, if you will, right? So 1 part rice to 1.5 parts water. Okay, keep the heat uniform, don't cut it off. You want some simmering to happen. So this is basically a medium, if you will, in terms of heat. My temperature reads 360. It's about medium plus. Now, here comes the very, very important stage. You have to taste the broth. The broth is going to basically be the end flavor of the rice. It's a little under-seasoned. It's definitely laden with umami though. I do think it needs a little bit more salt. So don't be afraid to add some salt. Okay. Scrape off all those fond bits from the bottom, the caramelization that happened. Taste it one more time. I have a feeling I'm right there. It's right there. And now cover it with the proper lid. One that actually fits the pot, in this case a sauté pan. This is it. This rice is going to take maybe 8 minutes or so, 9 minutes if that, to finish cooking. You can actually watch it happening in the pan. Keep the simmer going, and I'll be right back. I'm going to show you the end result in just a moment. Okay, so that was it. It was olive oil or some sort of fat medium, aromatics, onions, carrots, poblano, ginger, garlic, and then some vegetables like radish, zucchini, squash, salt, soy sauce, and then flavoring, right? So taste it. You may add dry spices in here, but that's actually too much. It takes away from the really beautiful, harmonious flavor development that's already happened. Because often this rice should be served with as an accompaniment with other dishes. So this is already happening. It's cooking away, and I'll be right back. I'm going to show you the end result. Ciao. So welcome back, folks. It literally has been about 8 minutes since I left you, right? I didn't want to just stand there and talk about random things, but I wanted to give you a sense of how to begin the rice. And once I put the lid on and I tasted the broth, I was happy with the way it tasted. It was seasoned right, it had the umami, savory. Put the lid on, kept it at a medium-low pace, temperature, and then just kind of walked away from it. You know, I actually had to take care of something. I'm back. This rice is cooked. It's completely cooked. I've switched off the stove, and it's been sitting with the lid on for about 5 more minutes. And that's really important. You want the rice to absorb every last bit of flavor and moisture. So after you cook the rice, it's really not a good idea to eat it right away. You want to let it sit and relax, and basically relax and separate. The grains have to separate from each other a little bit, and that's when it's at its best. So this rice has done that. Okay, so let me do the grand reveal. Voila, it is actually perfectly cooked. It looks perfect. How do I know? I know because all the rice has come to the top, right? So if I was to show you, you can see this. The rice has come to the top. All the vegetables have kind of steamed to the top, and it's separate. And clearly the rice is plumper than it first began. And long grain rice literally takes about less than 10 minutes to cook at a medium to medium low temperature. So let me just show this to you. You know, I mean, look at that, right? I'm not making this up. I mean, this was not contrived at all. This is made from scratch in front of you in a pan. So it's perfectly steamed rice. Let me just plate it for you, show you what that looks like. Okay. Perfectly steamed umami rice with all sorts of beautiful vegetables, a bit of soy sauce, a bit of mushrooms, finished, steamed perfectly, garnished with some sliced scallion whites. You can also use the greens, of course. And this, my friends, is perfect umami-laden rice. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. You know the recipe is coming. I hope this gives you a little bit more confidence in your rice making endeavors. Embrace rice as the world has. It's beautiful. There are thousands of varieties of rice now. Each have their own characteristic and technique of cooking and flavor profile. This is one of the queens of all rice brands, if you ask me, or varietals, if you ask me. Native to India, basmati rice. So thank you for being with me. Jite raho, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.